Good morning, my lovely little ghosts, and welcome to the Dark Orchard. I'm Laura, and this is your mid-May music update. As was said in my intro, this is a mid-May music update. More specifically, I'm going to be talking about music news that is currently relevant and things that are just happening music-wise, because a lot has been thrown at us at once, and I'm just going to break it down. I'm also going to be discussing the Event Safety Alliance Reopening Guide. So at the very end, I'm going to be discussing that and all of the points made in that. But first, let's ease into that with some music-related topics. First off, probably the one thing that a lot of people have seen already because it's been out there for a while is that Avril rewrote her song Warriors to be We Are Warriors. She changed the lyrics. Beautiful song. Amazing song. If you haven't heard it yet, you need to check it out. It's a real tearjerker. The video proceeds go towards charities, and it's just so good. So good. Always loved Avril. Her new album is just golden, and this song really hits hard. Motionless in White and Slipknot have officially canceled their tours and are doing refunds. Motionless in White released an email through SoundRink, which is where their VIP is from, stating that if you want to hold on to your Motionless VIP, you can. Because Motionless VIP is very hard to come by, and I even said myself, I've tried multiple times to get a Motionless in White VIP, and I finally have one, so I will not be getting my refund right away. I'm going to wait and see how everything plays out. Black Veil Brides has released that they will be refunding their VIP tickets. Their concert tickets are not under Black Veil Brides' control, but the VIP tickets are, so they will be issuing refunds for the VIP. On Twitter, Andy posted that VIPs will still be valid and honored at the rescheduled dates for those who choose to hang on to them. However, if anyone would understandably prefer a refund, we want to make sure that that option is available. So, they are giving refunds for VIP if you so choose. There are a lot of people pressed for money right now, so it's totally understandable. But again, just like with Motionless, I'd rather hold on to mine and play it by ear, see where things go, because VIP is sometimes really hard to come by, especially with certain bands. And if you've been trying to get that VIP for a while, you want to hold on to it and make sure that you have it once the tour date is rescheduled. Andy also states that they are working with the points of purchase in light of the postponements, trying to find a solution to the tickets being refunded. So hopefully we'll hear some news on that very soon on if they're actually going to be able to refund the tickets like Motionless in White has. But again, please remember this is out of their hands. They do not control the tickets. The tickets are controlled by point of purchase. They're controlled by the venues and the apps that you use to purchase. So Paradise City, the television spinoff from the movie American Satan, has posted their first trailer. I will link that down below so you can check it out if you haven't seen it already, but it looks really awesome. The whole cast is beautiful, and I cannot wait to see where the characters have gone from the end of American Satan. I'm really excited to see Leo's storyline because I watched the alt press interview with Andy Bierzak and Ben Bruce. There was a lot of chatting about Leo's character development, and I'm honestly super excited to see where his character has gone because he was such a dynamic and emotional character in American Satan, and I really want to see where that character is led. So here's hoping that American Satan gets put on a streaming service that I either already have or can access in the future. Netflix would be awesome, but you never know. Palais Royale released the countdown to their new album. I believe it comes out at the end of this month. The boys have been doing live shows and different online appearances that you wouldn't necessarily see otherwise, so that's been really fun. Asking Alexandria has just dropped their new album, Like a House on Fire. And with that came a new music video. If I mention specific things like that, I'm definitely going to link them down below. Just in case you haven't seen them, I'll label them and then put the link so you can check them out after this video. Johnnie Guilbert has released 2 new songs, including the song Miss You, and I honestly really love this song. I did not do a reaction to it. I should have, but I didn't. He has teased another new song coming out soon, so when that comes out, if there's a video attached, I will do a review of that and his other music. So keep an eye out for that when he releases his new song. Of course, as I have mentioned on my channel, very recently, Jake Bateman released Attention, and you should totally still be streaming Attention. I'll post the Spotify link down below so that you can go stream Attention on repeat and get those views up. Bones UK, the band Bones, who I discussed in the Palais Royale VIP review video, they did their first ever drive-in concert, and it was actually really cool to see. This is my observation from the video. All the attendees were wearing masks, and they stayed either on or in their vehicle. They were not in anyone else's space. They were very nicely spaced apart. The band was in the middle, and it looked as though the cars were either in a semicircle or a full circle, and then staggered so that people could see the band. To me, looked like a fun experience, looked like everyone was having a good time. And of course, other venues have already teased the idea of doing drive-in concerts. As far as we know, right now, Blue Ridge Rock Festival in September is still happening. That lineup includes Motionless in White, Avatar, Ice Nine Kills, Black Veil Brides, and many more. It's a lineup that's almost too good to be true, and I'm not holding my breath, but my friend Sarah says that we are entertaining the idea, so I suppose we're entertaining the idea. September is a long ways away, and perhaps things will be regulated a little bit more smoothly by then. We'll just have to see. But as of right now, the lineup seems so amazing. I don't know how anyone's going to choose a stage, because everything just seems so wonderful. It'd be really great to see Avatar again. I haven't seen them in 3 years? 3 years since the Carolina Rebellion. So it'd be really nice to see Avatar again, but I'm not getting my hopes up. Not really jonesing for it, just kind of thinking it would be nice. So, as of right now, the Blue Ridge Rock Festival has not canceled. And honestly, if we're talking about safety and things like that, festivals have their ups and downs. There are, of course, there's the stage aspect where you're very close to the barricade and people are all around you, but they also have a lawn option where you can keep your distance, have your own little bubble, and enjoy the show from afar. And I'm not usually that person. I'm usually the person that's stuck in the middle of the crowd, right at the front of the stage, trying to cheer on my favorite band. But with the circumstances being like they are, I would become my own bubble on the lawn kind of person. Another big concern with having a festival is having porta-johns, and of course the sanitary aspect of that kind of thing, and also having food receptacles and nowhere to wash your hands. So there's a lot to really think about in a festival setting, just like there is with any other setting. And I'm honestly kind of anxious to see what kind of precautions they plan on taking, if any, and that will really be the deciding factor with all of it. Ice Nine Kills released a Mother's Day song that is titled Jason's Mom. It is a song sang to the tune of Stacy's Mom, which was one of my favorite songs in the 2000s, but instead it talks about Jason's mom, like Friday the 13th, and they even throw in a Norman Bates mom, which made me giggle. Ice Nine Kills just has a way with words, and the way that they did the video for it was so well done. Each of the boys did their own parts from their own studios, and they pieced it together. It was really beautifully done, and And of course, I'm going to link that below as well, because if you haven't seen that, you need to. But this was an absolute total jam, and all the boys did such an amazing job on this song, and I loved it, every second of it. I've rewatched that video so many times. Tony Hawk announced on his birthday that they were redoing Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, and Ice Nine Kills wants one of their songs to be on the game. The games will be released September 4th, and honestly, I think Tony Hawk should insist that an Ice Nine Kills song be on the game. So I mentioned the Black Veil Brides are refunding their VIP. Before announcing the VIP being refundable, they made an official statement, and let me read that for you now. Due to the current global pandemic, we are working closely with our booking agents to reschedule all of the previously announced Black Veil Brides tour dates to a time that we hope will be safe for everyone. Obviously, things are very fluid right now, and we were all learning more about the effects the situation is having on the world, so we cannot currently announce specific dates for those rescheduled shows with any certainty, as things are subject to change as the industry as a whole works to bring live music back at the appropriate time. However, please hold on to your tickets, as they will be accepted at the shows when they do take place. Thank you so much for your support and passion, and most of all for your patience in this difficult time we are all facing together. We miss you, and we hope that you are all safe and healthy. Black Veil Brides. Now, when I first read that, I was a little concerned. We know Andy gets sick every tour anyway, and it would just be terrible for him to get sick like this. So that, on top of everything else, I just think it would be really terrible if they did decide to reschedule sometime sooner rather than later. As much as I want to see them live again, as much as I know some people want to see them live for the first time, I trust them to make the right decision and not put the Legion of the Black into any danger that they don't need to be in. Another curious thing that happened with Black Veil Brides is, on the exact same day, both Andy and Lonnie shaved their faces, which could just mean that they both decided to shave their faces at the same time. But they both had said that they were growing their beards out for as long as the lockdown lasted. Now, we all know that Andy doesn't really like his facial hair once it gets to a certain point, so that's understandable. But Lonnie, he usually grows his facial hair out a lot. A lot of the other guys have their off-season beards, and I don't know, it was just a little strange that both Andy and Lonnie decided to shave at the same time, but it might have been a coincidence, or it might have just been like, hey, let's shave our beards. You never know. You never know what's going through their heads. But I was like, oh my gosh, are they planning on touring? Because that was just the first thing that went through my mind. Probably nothing to do with that. Probably nothing at all to do with that. Don't read into my words. But that was my first thought, because they said they were doing it till the end of lockdown, and I don't know if lockdown's been lifted where they are. I think California did lift some lockdowns, so that makes sense. But I just thought it was really strange. And then the very next day, like hours after, Black Veil releases the statement. So here's hoping that they continue with rescheduling in a very safe manner. So from Arkansas scheduling their first social distancing concert to Live Nation entertaining the idea of drive-in concerts, a lot's happening in the concert world. A lot's happening in the live music realm in general. And there have been multiple articles to come out addressing the issues and addressing things that would need to be done. With artists that don't necessarily have a pit or a barricade, it's a lot easier to social distance and have people in seats. But if you try to take a rock show or a metal show or a punk show and tell those people to sit down and stay away from each other, you're gonna run into some issues. I mean, take Warped Tour, for example. The big signs that say no moshing, no crowd surfing, and of course, there's always gonna be mosh. There's always gonna be mosh pits. There's always gonna be crowd surfing. Even the singers scream about opening the pit up. Like, it's just, I feel like it's nature for those kind of fans to want to do that. Like, you just get the music in you and you want to go crazy. So I think it is going to be a lot harder for us as fans of that kind of music to adjust than it is for someone who might go to a symphony. Because you can sit down, shut up, keep your distance, and of course there's still the airflow issue, because like with restaurants, there's not much airflow and things can spread quickly. You just never know. 12 people, depending on how big your party is, and you enjoy the concert from inside of your pod, you're inside of your little area, where you don't make contact with anyone outside of your friend group. And my mother said that at that point she would just stay home and watch it on TV from the safety of her home, because what good is it to not stand in front of the band and see them? Okay, so now I have the event safety reopening guide in front of me, and we're going to go through it and break it down. It is 21 pages long, so I'm not going to be going into the stuff that's not specifically relevant to the fans. I'm just going to be talking about things that we as attendees would need to know. One thing that was stated in this article is that attendees are going to have to get used to the extra things. They're going to have to get used to hand sanitizer, washing your hands, not rushing into bathrooms all at once, not mingling in groups, and specifically wearing face masks, because concert venues are, by this guideline, going to require you wear a face mask while at the show. They paralleled this to how people were non-compliant at the beginning of the 9/11 transitions into checking baggage and more thorough security scans. Same deal with the concert scene. They are expecting people to rebel against it, especially the fans of harder music that are used to being more free. And we all know that a lot of people bounce around, they get really hot and sweaty, they punch and jab and move around so much that when you touch them, it's like touching a wet heater. And imagine that with a mask on. You'd have more people passing out than you normally do. And of course, there's at least one person that passes out every single concert anyway. So I think it's going to be sort of a big deal for us not to be gyrating in the crowd and not be moving as much and having to wear masks, but also opens up the opportunity to have band-themed masks and to be a little bit more creative with our mask structures. So that is one silver lining, but there's a lot of not so silver linings embedded into all of these plans. They are telling the venues that when they set all of these guidelines out, they're going to have to do it when the ticket is purchased. They're going to have to do it on the websites, on social media, during the event, and the artist will need to continuously remind the crowd to keep their distance and follow the rules. To me, this is so odd to even imagine. Like, can you just imagine Spencer just stopping the show in the middle of an Ice Nine Kills set and not saying open the pit, but instead saying keep apart, don't touch each other, make sure you're standing your distance, make sure that you have your masks on, there's hand washing stations in the bathroom, there's hand sanitizer at the end of your aisles. It's really wild. And of course, they're also encouraging signage and posters and markings on the floor, like the whole shebang. There is a little bit in here about contact tracing and how they're going to have to keep track of you when you go into a venue. Like, they're going to have to keep your name on file in case there's an outbreak and they have to trace it back to that venue so that they can later give you that call and say you've been exposed. So when I read that was a little, that felt like very guinea pig to me, but perhaps that's just the new way that people are going to have to do things. I don't know. It's all very new and scary, and I know quite a lot of people that won't take the risk right away. I'm skipping past all of the like worker stuff, like the workers being required to wear masks and things, because that's just a lot to cover. But basically, whatever the attendees are doing, the workers have to do tenfold. And they're also told that they have to sanitize the venue, including mic stands, the barricades, just every high-touch surface, including surfaces on the stage. And there are quite a few bands that don't like other people touching their equipment, so it will be up to the band themselves to sanitize their equipment and sanitize things around them. It just seems to be this guideline is asking for a whole lot, and I'm not so sure everyone's gonna be compliant. They're even suggesting that you do a virtual queue, just like how Disney has been doing for Rise of the Resistance, where you have the Disney app and you set and you like check in for your spot, and then when it's time for you to go in, they let you know, and then you go in. Same deal with concerts. They're asking that you stay in your vehicle, and then when it's time for you to go inside, you'll be called through your phone, and then you'll step up. Because they're going to be cutting down capacity, meaning the amount of people actually allowed inside of a building or inside of the venue, they're asking that the parking lots actually have spaces in between each car, even though the people aren't necessarily going to be in their cars for a long amount of time. It's the fact that when you're released from the venue, they want you to safely be in your car before they release the next person. So basically, it's going to be a queue coming in and a queue coming out, according to these guidelines. And they do say that this is feasible because for the foreseeable future, there will be smaller crowds. I don't know about you, but I know I have seen overflowing parking lots flowing into parking lots, flowing into parking lots, flowing into parking on the street. I can't imagine. I just can't imagine. I can't. It feels so surreal. They do suggest that will calls always be behind glass, that you always have a partition between you and your ticket taker, because of course you're coming very close to be able to hand your ticket over or retrieve your ticket from. They want 6 by 6 by 6 by 6 all the way around a person while waiting in lines, if lines are inevitable. So for every group that are together, you'll be here, and then 6 feet back will be another group, and they can't just loop the line back around. They have to also keep 6 feet that way. And they're also concerned about people wanting to walk down sidewalks, because of course most venues do line you up on the sidewalk before you go inside, and they're concerned about bypassers not following the same guidelines that they're requiring because they're not going into the venue. So they're also telling venues to be sure to have their people queue up in a emergency situation kind of way. The next really important thing that they mention is screening. They want you to do a temperature screening and a health check before you come into the venue, which means they're going to take your temperature, see if you have a fever, and then they're going to look at you and see if you have like a sweaty brow as a sign of fever, or that you look a little queasy. They're going to do like a physical visual up and down to see if you look sick, in addition to checking your temperature. But of course, there's always the possibility of someone being asymptomatic, which is why I mentioned above that it says they have to have your information for contact tracing purposes. They're saying it's perfectly alright to prohibit bags in general, but just because of the new guidelines, you will have your bag still checked. It's not going to be you're waved through just because something's going on. Your bag still will be checked because that's also the safety of yourself and others. Making sure that there's no weapons on your person and things like that. The metal detector wands will still be swiped over you and things like that as per usual. They are suggesting that all venues make it mandatory to have a digital ticket. So no paper tickets and no cash transactions, which actually is a very hindering thing to the merch booth, because because a ton of merch sales and, of course, the tips are almost always in cash. They're also saying that wristbands showing that you're 18 or up will still be going into effect, and if a patron does not have a face mask, that's the point where you're supposed to give them the face mask in line. So that will be the point where if you have no face mask on, they're going to hand you your face mask and put your wristband on if you need a wristband, or make the little X on your hand with the Sharpie. Once inside the venue, you're expected to either sanitize or wash your hands directly after entering. And it's expected for someone to be monitoring that, making sure that you actually do that instead of just walking by the station. So they make a point to say, have someone appointed at the first hand washing / sanitizer station so that the patrons do that as soon as they enter, because you might have been touching things outside, you might have been touching things that you shouldn't be touching just by accident, and they really want your hands to be clean when you enter the venue. For the departure from the venue, they're suggesting that it be done like an airplane. So currently, when you board an airplane, they board you back to front, and then when you exit, you go front to back. So that's how they suggest you do the venue as well. If you have, like, I guess barricade tickets, you go in first, and so on and so on. And then as you leave, those in the very back file out first. And then finally the ones at the barricade will come out. But they also say that barricades should not be packed, and that people should be social distance, and that there should be smaller crowds. There's just so many details in this 21-page article, and I really wonder how many of these guidelines are actually going to be followed by venues. They're emphasizing that if something's happening for like an outdoor venue, if there's a storm, to make sure that the patrons go to their vehicles and they do it in a sectioned off way so that not everybody is rushing all at once. Same with an indoor emergency, make sure that all of the attendees are going to their cars. So they make a point to, so even with emergency situations, they make a point to say they don't want everyone gathering together all at once and rushing somewhere. They do note in a note underneath that if there is an emergency situation, getting the patrons out becomes first priority and social distancing becomes second priority. But that's only in case of emergency and trying to get everyone that's inside out of a venue. They're saying that with restrooms, they need to have like one person per every other stall in the restrooms, and there should be no line forming at the restrooms, which good luck with that. But they're saying that if there is a line, to try to social distance them. But then some venues have like one bathroom and then the other right next to each other, and you have to crisscross to get to certain things. So again, where's the line? Like, where do you, how? This is the point where they mention the seated venues. I mentioned them earlier, but basically a seated venue, it's easier to space out the 6 foot, whether it be like 3 seats empty in between one seat and the next seat, or like you 3 are a party, so you 3 sit here and then we're going to have 3 empty seats, that kind of deal. So then you only have to worry about social distancing and keeping each other apart and keeping patrons apart when they get up to go to the restroom or go to a concession stand, etc. Which I'm sure is also what they're going to implement with, say, theaters. If theaters reopen anytime soon versus drive-ins, that's probably the same way they're going to do theaters. Because we all know there's always that random person in the back coughing all over everything in a theater. So it's probably going to be the same deal as a seated venue as a theater. And I'm not sure if theaters are included in this or if this is just for like concert venues. This part I'm going to read directly from my phone because I feel like it's super important. For general admission venues, A few obvious changes will be necessary whenever general admission events do reopen, which is the majority of rock and metal concerts. Like any kind of concert that you're used to me reviewing are general admission. Patrons cannot all stand at the front of the stage like they're accustomed, so no barricade. Moshing and crowd surfing are violations of social distancing and must be absolutely prohibited during the pandemic. So again, moshing and crowd surfing are violations of social distancing and must be absolutely prohibited during the pandemic. So that means, again, the kind of concerts that I attend, I foresee an issue. I even read where the singer from Lamb of God talked on this subject, this exact article, and basically said it's just not going to happen. Like metal concerts and concerts where moshing is a big part of the community, we might as well just wait, because where's the fun? He basically just said, where's the fun? And they're also basically saying that smoke breaks and things like that will be deeply monitored. You'll be watched with your every move, even more so than before, and you're not going to be allowed to just like gather outside and smoke and chit chat. Like the bar Arizona Pete's, they have a smoking section right outside where you can go out, you can catch some fresh air, and people are smoking out there. And that's just not going to be a thing anymore. Like, people go out there just to socialize, and according to the guidelines, it's not going to happen. They want venues to use gaff tape and spray paint, spray chalk to mark out sections where people are supposed to stand. They also even recommend rope barriers to separate patrons. So have a 6x6x6x6 square roped off, and I don't see how that would be safe at all, but it's in the suggestions. They also suggest that security be monitoring the floor more widespread and actually patrol the area in the open spaces. So between my 6 foot and the next person's 6 foot, they should have security walking back and forth between us, making sure that everyone's following the rules. And this is sounding more and more like sitting in a classroom than being at a rock show. Again, they're talking about an intermission in a show, per se, like maybe a performance theater or something, or a music show that actually has an intermission. They will also be expected to be ushered out back to front and then ushered back in front to back. So how they'll keep up with where you're sitting, I'm not sure, but that is in the guidelines. And they also mentioned that it will be a problem if some people decide to remain stationary and some people decide to leave the aisle, how that will play into effect when you're supposed to be keeping distance, but then you've got this person walking right in front of you. How's that going to work? For food and beverages, they're suggesting having disposable menus, just paper printouts that you can just toss in a recycling bin after a patron uses it, and low contact everything. So paying digitally, paying with a card that they can wipe down, things like that. They want as low of contact as possible. And they also want hand sanitizing after points of sale. So as soon as a sale is made, both the seller and the buyer should be sanitizing their hands. And now I'm just going to skip down some more until we get to the merch tables. I'm going to read directly from here again because this is talking about merch tables. And let's just recap. As we know, with most rock concerts, the merch table is laid out and you tell them what item you want and purchase it with cash, card, whatever, and then they hand it to you and you go on about your way. But to get to that table, you stand in line, and lines are an issue here. And then you stand at the table and you are standing right in front of that person, not within 6 feet, because you have to shout, you have to talk to them over the sounds of the venue. But let's get to that list. Contactless ordering. Items for sale can be posted on a website or event app that allows for mobile ordering and on-site pickup. So basically, you want that Black Veil Bride's tote, and you order it and you click pick up at venue, and then Frank's supposed to have it on reserve in the back. Okay, this is a pre-purchased tote that I am now giving to you, and I guess you'd have to confirm who you are or have a order confirmation or something. But then how does Frank get his tip? And usually when merch is sold on a website, a portion of that sale goes somewhere else instead of going directly to the band. Whereas when you buy merch at a show, you're confident that the money is going to the band and the crew versus a third party. So that makes me really uneasy, thinking that they're trying to do away with that and trying to make it more third party. I guess in theory it could be a PayPal transaction that goes through, and they create a totally separate site for that or a separate app for that, but I'm not really sure how all those logistics go, so I wouldn't know how to tell you all that. Just going by what it says, it seems like they're trying to do away with one-on-one buying the merch in person. It says for queuing, mark merchandise sale lines on the floor with a barricade or rope and have it patrolled by guest services to provide information and enforce social distancing. So what that means is they're going to have a merch line and you're going to be corralled by a barricade or a rope. And within that corral, they're going to have it sectioned off 6 feet apart. So I can imagine very long lines, because they're very long lines anyway. Like the last Ice Nine Kills concert I went to, the line stretched all the way from the side of the venue to basically the door. And that was, of course, before social distancing. That was pre any of this. So I can't even imagine what a wild, spaced out zigzag that would have to be. This next point just says touchless. No trying on merchandise, only workers may touch the items for sale. Which, for rock shows, that's normal anyway. Like they're not just gonna let you try on a shirt. They may, hold it up for you to show you what it looks like, but you're not gonna be touching the merch before you get it anyway. Because some people will just snatch it and run off. It's a common thing for us to not touch the merch. So that's no big deal. Again, contactless payment, point of sale systems that use Apple Pay or similar app eliminates the need for workers to touch patrons' credit cards. So back to paying at the bar for your food, they want it to be the same way here, except they don't want you to use a credit card. They want you to do as much contactless payment as possible. And honestly, I haven't figured that out yet. I have not figured out the Apple Wallet or the touch and pay kind of thing, which I guess is something I'm going to have to figure out if that's going to be implemented instead of a credit card. I'd rather just have my credit card in a baggie and then have them sanitize the baggie. Or have my credit card stored away and then them sanitize my card before they give it back to me. Something like that, instead of fully dependent on contactless payments. It's hard enough not paying with cash, but if card's the way to go, card's the way to go. No returns or exchanges, sales are final, obviously, but usually you just don't return anything anyway once you've bought it. And if it's defective, you let the company know instead of the merch seller, so that's understandable. And spacing. Merchandise sellers must be spaced far enough apart from each other so that patrons can wait in line while maintaining social distance and not block access. So what that means is you can have multiple people selling the merch, but they must also be 6 feet apart, so that if one person goes to this person and then the next person goes to that person, they're still 6 feet apart, and those people are also 6 feet apart. There's still going to be the issue of the table, and that patron talking directly to the merch person, but it's less of an issue than if they were smushed in together at a tight little booth. And again, they discuss high-touch equipment, wiping down microphones for spit residue and stuff like that, and I've already discussed that, but I don't see just anybody letting anybody wipe down their equipment. And then they also say that as soon as equipment comes into the venue, that the venue is responsible for wiping down every bit of equipment that comes through their door. Which again, really? I don't know many musicians that are like, sure, pour some alcohol on my expensive equipment that I spent my whole life saving up for. And that's really the last big point that they make. The rest are just showing you who has compiled this list. They've pulled a whole bunch of people to compile this list of guidelines, and I will, of course, post the guidelines down below so that you can look over them yourself and just see how ridiculous some of them are and how reasonable some of the others are. But in my humble opinion, I just don't see how a heavy rock or metal show is going to be able to happen without making some sacrifices, without some of those guidelines having to be tossed out the window. I don't see it happening. I don't see my music community doing some of those things. I don't see them standing in their own little bubble. I don't see them not getting into the show and having to wear a face mask to hinder them from shouting and screaming the lyrics and really getting into everything. So what does that mean for rock and metal shows as we progress? Are they going to have to take a back burner for a while? Are they going to continue on and just hope for the best? Are we going to be using contact tracing as a safety net for if someone does bring it into the venue? Like, there's a lot to think about. And honestly, right now, we're learning new things every day. Things are expanding every day, and the guidelines are strict, and I'm not so sure that things are going to go the way that the guidelines want them to go. And I'm going to be really interested to see how venues start doing things. But with that being said, I know this video took sort of a Debbie Downer turn, but you guys said that you wanted a bonus video discussing these new guidelines, and here it is. I honestly thought they were really interesting. I'm really glad that you suggested that I do it, and I hope that you enjoyed this little recap bonus video. So many exciting things that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Don't forget them just because I went over a bunch of technical stuff. Definitely go check out all of the artists that I mentioned above. Definitely go check out everyone down in the description, all the new videos, all the new songs. There's so much new music happening right now, and so much new music to look forward to, not to mention American Satan Paradise City is coming. Like, lots of things to look forward to aside from concerts. So let's just continue to support these artists the best way that we know how. And speaking of support, I would also like to leave a link down below for Frank's charity. For the Nomads, it has become a charity for the crew, the band crew, the people that make your concerts happen. So the makeup artists, the merch guys, the people that haul the equipment back and forth, all the people that live off of the money they make from shows that aren't getting an income right now. For the Nomads is for them. So I encourage you to get your all access social distancing pass and help out for the Nomads. If you have any spare change laying around, I know it's a hard time, but if you have any spare change laying around, be sure to toss it their way, because these are the guys that make your shows happen. These are the guys that make all access passes a thing. These are the people that make your artists look nice. They sell you their artist merch. They help the equipment sound the absolute best that it can sound. And definitely check out the sites. There's a lot of stuff for sale, t-shirts, stuff of all prices. There's stuff from $5 on up, just lots of cool things that you can get in exchange for your support and in exchange for just helping these people along, because without them, we wouldn't have concerts at all. Social distancing or not, without them, it wouldn't be a thing. So I'm going to link for the Nomads down below, and definitely check it out. I now implore you to go down into the comment section and leave me your thoughts. What are you most excited for? What concert are you hoping to go to once things start back? What do you think about the guidelines? Do you think people will follow them? Do you think they're insane? Just talk to me about this. You know I love for you to talk to me down in the comments, so if you don't talk to me about this, talk to me about something, and I'll see you Wednesday with a new video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you come around again soon. Say bye. Bye.